we're just gonna let it
I
happen.
couldn't possibly.
With your mic you have left on makeup, but no, carry on.
Right, so it's Pete here. I've got some of the Gritlands team in front of me, and they're going to tell us a bit about their new game they've got coming up later on in the year.
So the original idea for Gritlands came off the back of a conversation me and Ben had in a van on the way back from an Empire event, talking about the kind of games that we'd like to play, and we wanted to play a kind of madcap, zany, post-apocalyptic type game, and there kind of wasn't one. So we joked about it and said, wouldn't it be cool if we made our own game?
Wouldn't it be cool?
And then
And here we are.
15 years later.
One global apocalypse later, and the game is happening.
So is there any kind of influence from the Fallout games or anything like that? Or
I think there's a little bit, but I think we're in a different direction to Fallout, whereas Fallout is quite a bleak, at times too serious event. We are more in the kind of parody, fun, very British, very quirky, with a little bit of serious splashed in. It's a good mix. A lot of levity.
Yeah.
A lot of levity.
So what do each of you do? What's your involvement within the game?
So I make people go to meetings and set deadlines, and when we go live, I'll probably shout nerds in the field.
I think it's probably worth saying that we're four of a group of 6 as well, other people that have been working on it. Working for quite a while as well, but 2 of them on here. So my role really is I'm kind of fairly new to LARP. I'm very new to games. So I kind of give a context of, does that make sense to me? Will it make sense to our players? Where people are coming from? And then I expect to be doing a lot of logistics and actually game running on the actual weekend when we're doing it.
And like you said, we're part of a larger team, and everybody's doing something at this stage because you can't really specialise with such a small number of people. And we did a lot of work on how the core game is going to be different from other LARPs. So rather than going out on encounters and battles and things like that, the environment is going to be much more like a sandbox, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah.
And the way that the clans, which are the player factions, they've all been developed very differently, so they're very, very different from one another. So while they're all post-apocalyptic in one way or another, there's no way you could stand them side by side and get them confused.
So how many clans are there?
4.
4 clans, okay.
Are we doing introductions? Is that it?
A little bit.
No,
What do you do?
talk about what you do.
So I, again, was in the car when this event. But come on, we gotta get in. It's the origin story. I'm also on the art direction side of things, so I've worked on the branding and a lot of the visual stuff, and I'm also working on some of the cult plot, which we'll talk about in a minute, I'm sure. And I'm going to be one of the faction clan command for the cult.
Right. So what's this cult plot?
Oh, should we talk about the 4 clans?
The clans,
Yeah,
I think we should talk about the 4 clans.
But you should talk about the cult because it's your
So
favourite.
the unnumbered hosts are essentially a mad, secretive, chittering collection of various cults and mad systems of belief, all worshipping this unknown, unseen, great leader who knows the secrets of the apocalypse and keeps it very closely guarded to his chest, and has this vast group of followers who all have their own little beliefs and their own ideas about what he might think and what he might know, and it's just going to be a crazy mess of robed nutters all arguing amongst themselves and shouting about the end of days, and they love it. They love the apocalypse. They're here for it. They don't want it to change, and they're absolutely unhinged.
Best thing that ever happened.
Best thing that ever happened. They love it.
So the difference between the clans is their sort of reaction to the end of the world and how they want to react to it. So the others who really, really love it are the Wastelanders, who are a bit more like your stereotypical Wasteland raiders wearing like tire armor and chaps and that kind of thing, except there's a little bit of a bent on it because there's a lot of references to British culture that they've picked up and are sort of running with. But they're the ones who are embracing this, this is the end of the world, we can essentially do what we like kind of thing. And they're very, very important to the other clans because they're the ones who go out into the wastelands, find all the scrap and lost technology and bring it back for everybody else. So in that way, they're indispensable, even though everybody else wants to keep them maybe at a little bit of a distance because they're very extreme.
So So the nice thing is interdependency between all the different clans that are there as well. So not one clan kind of can exist on its own, and that's what we've sort of built into the game, so that people have to talk to other people, they have to interact with other people, and no doubt there will be some sort of rivalry or people's beliefs and pecking orders, but they have to actually work with other people to get something done, and they're going to have to work with other people to work through the sandbox and deal with everything that they're going to be faced on the event weekend. My favourite is NewGov. These are the people who are trying to bring order to the chaos, so they are the kind of bureaucrats of the 1980s Britain almost. They're trying to get forms in triplicate and people to have the right passes and be in the right place, and they tolerate mutants, but obviously mutants need more forms because they need to have more control over them.
The fourth clan is the Knights of the Realms. So these are quite clearly LARPers who've survived Armageddon. They're the kind of the agrarian society and the sort of stable post-apocalyptic hierarchy we've got. They're actual goodies. Very few people in LARP tend to be actual goodies. They often oh yeah, we're the goodies, but we'll also do whatever it takes to get the job done. The knights are actual goodies. They are heroes. They want to go out and save people and that kind of jazz, but not a kind of like suicidal idiot paladin kind of style of thing. Yeah, they should be quite a lot of fun. But their sort of heraldry is sort of classic UK brands as their sort of livery and heraldry.
I think what's important to mention on that note with all the clans is that this is set 200 years after the apocalypse. Nobody knows what's happened, and the remnants of the United Kingdom are vague and disjointed, so all of these clans are taking old world iconography and pop culture and societal things and misinterpreting them massively. So they've all got that British spin on things that completely make no sense. So for example, in our promo you had the Oxo Knight, which was a knight who had taken the Oxo brand, formed a big piece of armour and obviously worships that. We've got a deity within the unnumbered host called the Bealavian from East's End, who is guarded by the vicious Pat the Butcher. So it's all of that kind of absolutely zany stuff that makes this a very British apocalypse.
But it's interesting what you said though about it being sort of 200 years after Armageddon. So this isn't it's not a survival game.
No.
There's loads of post-apocalyptic games which are survival games. Don't get me wrong, it's really cool, but that's not what our game is. It's not about ferreting through the ruins to find the last tin of beans. This is more about rebuilding a society in a kind of post-apocalyptic setting where our four clans are the kind of stable pockets of humanity that have managed to get to this.
They have a functioning society.
Yeah.
The only thing is they're all tragically misinformed as to what happened and how things work.
They're also the B team.
Yeah.
So the A team went out to try and do something and never came back. So they don't really know why they're there and they don't really know what's going on, but they have to somehow get through this area to be able to find things that are going to be really valuable for them going forwards. So the thing we want to get over to the players is it's very much grimly hilarious with the grim and the hilarity, but we do expect and anticipate and want to make it quite a challenging game.
So it's not so our game's not about being in a settlement and sort of running settlement life. That all happens off camera. Our event is the bit where the crack elite B team heroes go into the radiated wastelands to try and retrieve lost technology and that kind of thing. So it's like everyone who comes to our event is on a daring commando raid to try and retrieve, I don't know, the last solar nanotubes so they can build a better water supply or whatever it is. And that's a sort of a really important thing to get across. It's not about being in a settlement, living in a settlement and playing those kind of background characters or those kind of social characters. It's about action, adventure, leaping through windows, being eaten by radicals.
High octane.
High octane.
High octane. And a good mix of grim and hilarity. Like you say, that's important. It's not just one big comedic shit show, but it's not one big bleak, serious thing. It's a good mix of both. It's going to be funny, but there are going to be times when you are shitting bricks because there's chaos unfolding around you.
So I think you said before, it's one of those things where much of the hilarity is probably going to come retrospectively. So somebody's going to be doing something to get something, and it's going to be very, very serious at the time, because you're very close to losing your life, or with your clansmen losing their lives as well. But you realise you've done it to get a phone box door.
A vital cultural artifact from the time before Armageddon, obviously.
So you're not actually running your event in a forest, are you?
No.
No, so we're looking to use urban sites for our events. Certainly the first one we're using is the jail up near Leicester, which is great. It's an old prison. So there's a number of buildings and piles of burnt out cars and barricades.
Very apocalyptic.
Very apocalyptic. And then for our second event, first one next year, we'll probably use Fort Widley down in Portsmouth, which is great because it's got miles of tunnels and rad-ghoul infested cupboards and that kind of thing.
We want this to feel like a post-apocalyptic world, not running around in a forest.
Smashing. Right, well, when is there an entry for when you're going to do a cut-off date for applications to join your game?
Yeah, so we're pushing out the sort of character creation in the next couple of weeks. We're slightly over our original timescale because we've all got real lives and jobs. But once that goes live, there's a period of a month where people get to submit character submissions. There's only 100 tickets for the event, so we're going to get people to put in character submissions, and we'll choose 100 out of that.
And get on that as soon as possible, because we're currently sitting at, I think, nearly 600 people in the group, and there's a lot keen for it.
So we've got, the other thing as well though is we're trying to encourage people to kind of be iterative in the way in which they might develop the characters. So we've got groups, we've got email groups, we've got Facebook groups for people who are interested in the individual clans, and they can come and say, I've got this concept, what do you think? And it's a case of like, well, why are you there? What are you doing? What are you going to do? This isn't quite right for the setting. How have you thought about this? How have you thought about that? So we're hoping that people will develop that kind of iterative process, because it's quite interesting from some of the people I've spoken to. They conflate ideas of the clans, which we are trying to keep quite separate. So they want to be a baddie knight, or they want to be a knight that has a faith. And those two things are separate. So it's a case of you're going to have to make a choice from your original idea and try to develop that even further.
And we have a whole selection of reading material
that
you can get all the details for every clan from, so you know exactly what's on brief and what's not, and it has lots of exciting jams to get you keen up in it.
Can I talk a little bit about what happens at the event?
Yeah?
Absolutely.
So you guys have said sandbox, but I'd like to quote the great LARP auteur Andy Raff and say it's more like a pass the parcel. So when you go into the hot zone, you can go into the hot zone for a limited time duration before your brain melts or the poison gas gets to you or nanites speak your legs. So you'll be able to go into the hot zone for, let's say, 20 minutes.
And the hot zone is?
The hot zone is a zone in the game, in the setting, which is dangerous to go into for various different reasons. So you can only go into the zone for a fixed amount of time. You can augment that with some abilities and some items, but ultimately you're going to go in, you're going to look for challenges, and it's
Insert interlude.
So you're going to go into the hot zone. So let's, for example, you know that there's a building, it's in the hot zone. You'll send a team in, they get to the door, they open the door by performing a series of games mechanical challenges, maybe while the ragghouls are trying to eat them. They'll get in through the door and they'll trip the alarm sensors and activate the killbots. But at this point in time, they've probably only got maybe 4 or 5 minutes left in the zone before they start taking damage, essentially. So they'll come out, and then the next team gets to go in. And again, they can only go in for a limited duration as well. And the other team should probably tell them about the killbots, but there's obviously no obligation to do that. So the game unwraps in layers in what I'm going to say is a sort of a non-linear context, because there'll be several hot zones on site that you can access. You may need things from one to unlock the next steps in another, or there may be multiple paths. There's no kind of like, this is the linear route through our game. It is about being Ian.
Smashing. Anything else you'd like to add as a final note?
Talk about the date.
It's the weekend of the 20th of October. If you search for our page, the Gritlands, there's a Facebook group off that. You have to answer the questions to get in to avoid all the bots and the people who want to sell you sunglasses for some reason. But yeah, come and have a look at what we are talking about. Come and have a look at the game. It should be really cool.
Are you on Instagram at all?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook. All the documents you need are in the Facebook group. That's where you can download them all. So go on Facebook, follow the page, but also join the group because that's where all the content you need is. But yeah, we're also on Instagram.
Lovely. Right, well, wish you good luck for E1 later on in the year, and hopefully here's some good things about it.
Absolutely.
Cheers, guys.
Thank
Thanks a lot.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.